Hello there and welcome. Let's dress our bears. Okay, making some clothes for these little guys. I've got a piece of paper that I'm going to use to make a pattern. So it's just like scrap paper. I am going to quite literally just hold it over the front of the bear like a little blanket and kind of mark off where center is and where his shoulders start or her shoulders, and then where the arms go, and bringing it down most of the length of the body. So I'm literally just sketching out. I'm making just like a little A-frame or A-line dress for the bear. So I've got that halfway mark. I've got where the arms need to come out of, about how long I want it. I'm just going to fold the paper a little bit in half here. I'm going to leave just a little bit of room past that halfway point, so then I've got some seam allowance on either side. So I'm folding that in half, and then I'm just going to go ahead and cut out that shape. The fabric I have that I'm using is very stretchy, so I'm just going to cut two of that first shape. But if you're using like a cotton or anything that doesn't have quite so much stretch, you might think about making a separate pattern for the front and the back, because very similar to a person, the back of the bear is a bit wider around than the front. So you could do two separate pattern pieces so that you've got enough material to go all the way around them once you put them on, put the clothes on them. I'm not going to make any pants because teddy bears famously go bottomless, so this one will too. So now that I've got those, I'm going to take some chalk and just mark the little armholes so I know where to avoid putting the stitches. Don't mind my hilarious sidewalk chalk. Okay, so I'm going to thread some needles, sew the shoulders together, sew the sides together, and then try it on the bear. Okay, before I sew these together, I just want to make sure that they are right sides together, so the inside's on the outside. I am going to do one more quick little thing just to make it a little bit cuter, look a little bit more like an outfit. I'm just going to go in a little bit away from that shoulders right into the center. I've got it folded in half, and I'm just cutting a little curved shape for the neckline so it looks a little bit more like a regular t-shirt rather than just a straight across old-timey sort of 80s look without that. So I've cut that nice and smooth all together. I think I'm just going to leave that part raw, but I will start with the shoulders. So we're just stitching together the shoulders in a little bit down, the tiniest bit, just so that they don't come unraveled at all. So we're just doing a little whip stitch across the top. Doesn't have to be anything fancy, it's just a teddy bear. It's not going to actually move around in it or anything. So just going over and over, making sure that the stitches are just close enough together that when we flip it inside out there won't be big gaps or holes or anything. But we don't need to be too particular with it because, like I said, you don't have to think about a person moving or bending or running around in the clothes. All those sort of things you would take into account if you're making clothes for a moving person. This doesn't have to be super perfect. Alright, so just getting that last bit on that little corner done up. I'm going to tie that off, and then right underneath where your chalk marks are, you'll start and work your way down in the same way to that end seam, and then repeat on the other side, and then we can try it on our teddy bears. So we've got that sewed together. I'm going to flip it right side out. And I am going to leave the neckline and the arms just raw, but you don't have to. You could finish yours if you wanted to. Maybe with a bias tape or just kind of folding it under. You could Fabri-Tac that down, the Fabri-Tac glue, just to hold it under, or just sew it. Up to you guys. Whatever you feel like doing. And we will put her little dress on. Actually, the shirt I made this little dress out of has the buttons I was looking for the eyes, and sort of compromised and went with these guys, so I might pluck her eyes off and change them to the other buttons. The shirt's like the shirt that just keeps on giving. Okay, so I have her little dress on. Just a little A-line dress, nothing fancy. And then for my kiddo's particular teacher, she wears this long blue sweater often. So I'm going to knit up a little blue sweater to go over her little dress here. You can see the back of it. So it's nothing fancy. Maybe you know the person you're making a bears for's favorite color. You could just make a little t-shirt in that color. You don't have to do anything extra. But I'm going to go find some blue yarn and we will work on making a sweater for our bear. I've got my dark blue yarn here. I'm going to be working with a size 10 needle just to get through it as quickly as possible. I'm going to make a slip knot, and then I'm going to cast on 30 stitches for the back of the sweater. So it's just going to start out like a T shape. So I'm going to start with a piece that's wide enough to go all the way across the arms and the back. And then once I have about 10 to 12 rows, so enough to be the back half of the sleeves, I'm going to cast off just into the sleeves so that the body is still on there, and I'll keep working until the sweater's as long as I want it. And then the two front pieces will be a little different. So if you are making a sweater and you've made this exact same bear, roughly casting on 30 stitches, working with a worsted weight yarn and a size 10 needle will get you the right size for that first sweater piece. I went ahead and made all 3 pieces of the sweater here. So the back, that T shape, I added a couple stitches along the way as I went down to make it a little wider to get around his little beer belly there. And then for the half of a little T shape, the only thing I did differently is I cast on 15 stitches instead of the 30 because it's just halfway. But then as I came down, after the first 3 rounds, every knit or purl, depending on which side I was working on, I would add a stitch to make it come over a little bit, so you get that little kind of V shape of the sweater neck. So then this is one side and this is the sleeve, and then same thing, the other side just mirrors it. So where you're purling to add a stitch, you would knit to add a stitch on the opposite side, so they go the other direction. And then same thing when you're casting off for the sleeves. You would cast off while you're knitting, cast off while you're purling to make sure that you have a left and a right. And then you just put everything right sides together, sew up all the parts that don't need to stay open. So the shoulders, the arms, the underneath part of the arms, and the sides of the sweater. The armholes stay open, neck hole stays open. In the front for this one is going to stay open as well. And if you wanted to do a simpler sweater, you could just measure what size kind of rectangle shape you would need for the front, the back, and the 2 sleeves. So you would make 4 rectangles and then sew those all together to make the sweater if you wanted to make it a little easier on yourself. All right, I'm going to go ahead and sew these together and then try them on our bear. Her little sweater here, what do you call these sweaters that don't close in the front? A cardigan thing is done. It's all sewed together. It's the back of it, just nice and plain, nothing fancy, nice and blue. Little bell sleeves, looks a little like a wizard. That's okay. Teachers kind of are wizards. Okay, So now that her clothes are done, the next thing we're gonna add on is her hair. So the lady who I'm making this bear after has some nice dark, long, straight hair. So I'm gonna go ahead and find some black yarn and some dark brown. I'm gonna cut a zillion threads of it, and I will show you how I sew it in. I've got my strands of hair ready. I'm going to show you how I start off. I'm going to start with the darker color, just for a little contrast. I'm going to take, so I'm folding it in half. I'm going to take the two open ends. Black yarn, maybe shouldn't have started with black yarn. Anyway, I'm putting both of those ends through my yarn needle. Right there, no, not against a back black drop, you can kind of see. So both of those open ends are going through my yarn needle. And then I'm going to find where I want her hairline to start. She's got a little center part, so I'm just going to go a little bit off to the center. We'll work in through a stitch there, and then you can see that loop there. I'm going to bring the yarn through there and pull. So now our first two strands of hair are in, and I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to work here, here, and then around and around, just like a hairline would be. And then once I've got all that outline, I'll start to fill it in. And I'm going to alternate between the darker and the lighter color, just to, you know, give it more of a brown feel. Less black, just sort of look more like a dark brown. So I will keep going. I'll show you where her hairline ends up, and then we can fill in all that hair. Here is the start of her hairline. We've got those front pieces in. You can see there's nothing underneath the ears there, because she'll just have her hair kind of tucked over. And then around the back, and just did that outline right where that is. So then the next step would be just to fill in across all these rows, and you can fill that in till it's as full as you'd like it. If you do at least that top, every single spot you can, then you can go a little more sparse throughout, so you don't have to go crazy adding little strands of hair. But if you do, you'll just have thicker, fluffier hair, which is totally okay. And if you want to keep the hair straight, like how I have this hair, you can. And if you need it curly hair, hold on, let me grab a brown piece so you can actually see. So if you wanted curly hair, you could take the ends of the yarn and just start to slowly untwist that yarn. You see how it starts to split there? And then as it splits, you keep going, keep going, keep going up, and those little strands will create little curls. So that's one kind of simple way to just get curly hair on there if that is what you're after. I'm going to go ahead and finish filling this in, and then we can talk about her eyelashes. With all the hair on now, the only thing left to do as far as hair goes is just to give it a little haircut. You can see it looks a little crazy on the ends, so whatever length you want your bear's hair to be, just take your scissors, give it a little snip, cut it across. And then the next thing is our eyelashes. So we'll need some false eyelashes. You can get them at Dollar Tree, you can get them at a beauty supply store, you can get them makeup shops, those kinds of places. They don't have to be anything that's like super fancy or crazy expensive, because you are going to be cutting them in half and gluing them onto a teddy bear, so they don't have to be top quality there. So once you have those, we're just going to measure out about how long we want them, cut off little pieces, trying to make them about the same length. And then the glue I like to use for that is Fabri-Tac, but any kind of glue you have that instantly bonds and is clear would probably work a-okay. Alright, I have my fabric glue and a lash already kind of cut to the size that I wanted. So I'm going to put the glue just along the old plastic line of the lash, just like you would if you're going to put it on yourself. And then getting any extra out of the way. And making sure that the eyelash is facing the right direction. Gotta turn her around here. And then just along the top of the eye. Just gluing that in. I'm gonna use my fingernails, but if you have like a little pencil or like a stuffing stick or something, you could use that to make that line stick down just across the top of the eye there. I'll let that dry, and moving the hair out of the way on the other side. I'm just going to do the same thing with the second lash. Taking that lash with the glue, finding the center of where I want her, and just using my fingernails to move that lash all along the sides there. I think I could use just another little drop. And this glue dries super fast. Sometimes you gotta like peel off the top like a jello or a pudding skin. There we go. And then I'll leave those to dry. You can kind of see her. She's got little eyelashes now. Once they're dry, I'll put her hair back and then move on to her other accessories. Her next little accessory is her little lanyard. Just says the grade she taught, the year. I'm just covering up the name of the school. Their little logo, and then I put a little hole punch hole in there and put it on a string so she could wear her little school ID as a lanyard. So after this, the only other thing that I'm going to make for the bear as an accessory is just a little yearbook. For the tiny little yearbook, I went ahead and kind of cut out just a little template shape so I wouldn't have to draw the bears over and over again on there. Just make sure I'm on a new page. Okay, so then to draw them, I'm just putting my little template down, and then that way everybody looks the same. No one has like a big head or something. Or if one of them does, they all do, because they'll all look the same. Oops. And working in pencil to start so I can erase any lines I don't like, any parts where maybe I make a mistake. I can just take that eraser. And then once I have the shape sketched in, I can add whatever quotes they might say, what their names are. So these are going to be two girls that are always together, so they get to share a little page. And then we'll just give them little eyes, a little nose, and then around the nose we'll just draw the little teddy bear snout, give them some clothes and arms. Then I'll go in later with the colored pencil and just add more detail and add their little quote in. Since these girls are shared a page, I have to get creative with where I put it. I've just been putting them on the opposite opposite ends there. And they both have long hair, long straight hair, pretty much for both of them. Then I'll color in the hair better later. And I'm gonna keep going. And so if you want to do something like this, I got this little notebook at Hobby Lobby. They had ones at Michael's too, but they were just a little bit too small. And they had a bunch of different ones at Hobby Lobby too that were about this size. They're kind of the perfect size for the teddy bear. So I'll keep going. I'll fill in a couple more. I'll show you a colored one after I'm done coloring them. She is all done. We've got her hair, her lashes. She's got her little lanyard and her outfit. She had a little haircut, so her hair is nice and straight across the back. And then the last piece is our little yearbook. So I got everybody colored in. Their little quotes are in there. And we're going to take that, and the little string that came around the book, I just looped it through that little hook that's on there, or not hook, little ring that's on there. I'm just going to take this and tie it around her wrist, just so it doesn't get lost in the little gift bag. And here she is, all done with all of her accessories. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye.